Communication opens many doors, and the key to awesome co-parenting after separation lies completely in great communication. So tell me, Nardine, there's heaps of ways that parents can communicate these days.
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
So assuming face-to-face isn't going to work, because it probably isn't.
Hopefully it is.
Hopefully it might eventually. You know, you hear stories about people, separated parents, and they go and have coffee together. That's lovely. But not my experience as a common thing. So if you can't do it face-to-face and you're not great on the phone with each other, then of course there's things like sending emails, sending text messages. We all know that the written, text message can sometimes be misconstrued, but that's a good way of communicating. Something that was very popular before all of the technology stuff was just what we called a communication book. And it was simply a book that the child had in his or her bag, and they took it between the houses. And mum and dad wrote in this book about things that they needed the other parent to know. So that was good if it was used well. Of course, when mum or dad felt the need after a couple of glasses of wine to write how you really have annoyed me, was not a good use of the communication book. And the other thing that...
Is that because kids started reading it?
Of course. So that's what I was about to say. Kid knows this book's about them. You think they're not going to read it?
Yeah,
they're going to read it. They're going to show it to their mates. So
rip out a few pages.
Yeah, that's right. So
I don't need to do my homework.
That's it. So used properly, though, a book like that is actually a really good idea. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with the good old system of actually writing something down in a book. But if you're not like that, if you'd rather not have the kids read the communication book, there are lots of things now like apps. So Talking Parents is one. Family Wizard is another. There's lots of different ones. If you Google online communication for parents after separation, something like that, you'll get a list of them. And most of them are free, or at least they have a free trial, so it's worth just having a look at them. Talking Parents, for example, is great, but it's very much focused on keeping evidence, like keeping this for court. And I think sometimes that's probably not a great place to start, that you're building this communication platform because you want to use it in court, So it doesn't set a good scene.
No.
So there's probably other apps that would be more helpful. The main thing that an app does for you, I think a really good thing, is a shared calendar. So you can put in events for the children and the other parent pops up on their calendar as well. So you keep each other informed about that. So just have a look at those things, work out what works best for you in terms of being able to have that sort of information flow between each other. What's coming up for the kids at school this week? What do they have to do homework-wise? Do you have to make a costume for them, and would you like to know that before 12 midnight and they're there the next day? All those sorts of things that when you lived together it was just part of your daily life. You probably had a diary or something where you wrote all this stuff in. So it's just working out a way of keeping that information flow going when you're in two separate places.
So how can parents keep their kids out of it?
So working out a way that kids don't see that communication. So I think it's a good thing if kids see the communication when it's working well.
Yes.
That's really powerful for children to see that mum and dad are working together. It's clear to the child mum and dad have this child is their number one focus, and they are working really well together to keep this child's life running really smoothly. So if you're in that position where you're communicating really well with each other, I don't see the harm actually in letting kids be a part of that communication. But you have to be really careful that it's positive, because the minute it slips into the negative is when the children get caught up in conflict, and that's what you've got to avoid. So, for example, telling a child, Dad can't pick you up from school today, I'll pick you up, but he's going to get you tomorrow because something came up at work. That's a good communication involving the child. I mean, they need to know obviously who's picking them up from school today, but it's involving them in the communication in a positive way, rather than the opposite. Oh, your dad's not going to get you today again. You can see the difference, how a child is going to interpret those two things.
So what about in consent orders or the parenting orders? what's a good way to put the communication in there?
Yeah. So people do that regularly in consent orders. So they have a tiered approach. So they say parties will communicate by email or text for non-urgent matters. Parties will have a communication book that will travel with the child. Parties will not put anything derogatory of the other parent in that communication book. In an emergency, parties will communicate with each other by way of telephone, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So people actually do spell it out in detail in parenting orders if they feel the need to do that.
Wow. It's sad that we have to actually do that, isn't it, as parents?
Yeah, but look...
It depends on the divorce and the separation.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, the best thing is that just flows naturally. But
yes.
Look, if it doesn't, and if it helps you to have it spelt out so that you each understand what your obligations are, no problem with that.
Love it. So good communication can make many aspects of life much easier for you, for the kids, for everybody realistically. So, and it may surprise you how well it can work, maybe better than when you were actually together. So if you need a family lawyer though to assist you through this time, definitely get in touch with the team at Collier Lawyers today. Nardine would love to help you.
Yeah.